Hi, I'm Brooke, and I'm so excited to welcome you to Beam Boldly. As an NCAA Division I gymnast, I know firsthand what it feels like to carry the weight of performance, expectations, and identity. Here, we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about mental health, performance anxiety, NIL, resilience, and of course, how faith is our foundation that carries us through all of that. Whether it's stepping onto the beam in competition or just stepping out in everyday life, we are called to live boldly, and we're called to let our light shine. The name Beam Boldly was inspired by the verse Matthew 5:16, which says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." To me, that's what this podcast is all about. So if you're ready to hear raw conversations, find strength in faith, and be reminded that you are never walking this journey by yourself, join me as we step boldly into everyday life.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Beam Boldly. I am your host, Brooke, and today's guest is Estelle Haugen. Welcome, Estelle.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yes, I am so excited about this. For those of you that don't know, Estelle did 4 years of volleyball here at UGA. So I actually remember going to a volleyball game and being like, I saw you on the court and I was like, something about her shines so bright. Like, I want to be friends with her. I need to talk to her. Like, I don't know what it is. And I immediately found your Instagram and I was like, follow. Which is just so funny. But now you are playing beach volleyball at Grand Canyon University, right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Super cool. I'm excited to dive into all of that and that whole process in a bit. But I first want to share kind of the topic that we're going to discuss with the listeners, because Estelle and I have actually been going back and forth for a long time getting this scheduled and just, what we wanted to talk about, what we wanted this episode to be surrounded around. And so we're going to dive into how to incorporate God in the busyness and the chaos that comes with being a student athlete, which whether you're in high school as a student athlete or middle school as a student athlete, when you play sports and you're doing school, it can be a lot. And of course, there's other factors and other things you do in life too. So I think it's going to be a great conversation of just how God is influenced and involved in all of the different things we do, and how, we easily get very stressed as humans. So how God can really help us through that. But first, Estelle, I would love to hear from you just how you started volleyball, the background of all of that, and then some of your accomplishments.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and just talk with you. So I felt the same way watching you. I was just like, oh my gosh, something is different about her. And I knew it had to be Jesus. But yeah, so I started volleyball when I was about 10 years old. So I've kind of played my whole life, but I played about every sport in the book growing up. So my parents kind of just tossed me in everything. I'm a triplet. So 2 boys, they both went to Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
So I kind of I played every sport with them. And then I have an older brother too. So very active family.
What is that like, being the only girl? I'm sure you get asked that all the time. But
yeah, I love it. Growing up, I was like, dear God, please give me a sister. And now I'm like, you know what? It's kind of fun being the only girl. So I get spoiled. So I love it. But yeah, it definitely raises a competition level in me. I feel like just growing up with 3 brothers. But yeah, so that was a huge blessing to be able to go to college with both of them. So yeah, I kind of did volleyball, and then hockey was also kind of my other sport. And then when I went to high school, it was like focus on volleyball. And then I got recruited and committed to Georgia, which I was there for 4 years. Couldn't have loved my experience more. Amazing in every way. And yeah, so I got to be a captain my senior year, which was like a huge blessing, and help lead the team as an outside. And then after that, I was like, I'm not done. And I knew that my indoor eligibility was up. So I was like, okay, let's think of what else I could do. And in the past, I've always loved beach volleyball, but I didn't really know how that worked, like how you get recruited, which come to find out, very different sport. Very interesting transition process.
Really?
Yes. You would think like, oh, you're just in the sand. It's different. It's very different.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to dive into that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So that has been quite the transition. But yeah, I just knew that after those 4 years and just seeing how the Lord was working, I was like, I'm not done using my sport to glorify God. And I just if I have more time to be able to do that, why would I give that up? So yeah, I'm pursuing my master's here. I did my undergrad in nutrition and now I'm doing my master's in nutrition.
Um,
So yeah, just keep on chugging in the college world.
yeah, I love that that's your perspective of, oh my gosh, I do have more years, so I'm gonna use it for the goodness and like for God instead of just
Yeah,
like, I have 4 years and I love volleyball, like, like making it all
right.
about yourself. So I just think that's a unique perspective, but it's like the kingdom perspective. So that's super cool. Okay, so shifting a little bit, obviously, you mentioned a little bit about your faith. I would love for you to take me back and kind of just give me the background of your faith journey, a little bit into your testimony.
Yeah. So I grew up in a Christian household, very strong family, just in the faith. My parents raised me consistently throughout that. And then when I went to college, I think was probably my biggest test of my faith. So I'm from Minnesota, went to Georgia. So it was my first time really far from home. And all I knew was volleyball, and that was it. And so my freshman year, as I feel every college athlete experiences, all of a sudden you're just kind of good with everyone else. Like everyone else is good too. And it was the first time that I realized, oh, maybe my identity is in volleyball. And it took a lot of conviction and realizing first, like the awareness of like that is the case. And it hurt. It hurt really deep to like have to realize that. But it's also the greatest gift I think I've ever gotten from volleyball. I always say over my 4 years, like biggest win that I ever, they were like, oh, what's your biggest win? And I'm like, it's not any win that I had, but the win is that I was able to define, like, I identify myself in Jesus instead of my sport. That's 100% the biggest win that I take from college, honestly. So, yeah, my freshman year was like a lot of learning and just being like, okay, this is not who I am. Like, there's so much more to me. And so then after that kind of came the process of I'm at this huge public university. How do I find my people? How do I like pour it into and then also pour out to people? And so then I feel like through the last 3 years at Georgia was a lot of like refining and shaping me and being able to all of a sudden be bold in my faith. I think it came at kind of like my sophomore, junior year. I was learning how to not be ashamed of the fact that I'm very passionate and that my life looks different. I think that's something with like going into the college athletic scene is like, you are going to live a different life. And so I think over time I was like, wait, this isn't something to be ashamed of. This is something to like be proud of and proclaim. And so, yeah, over time there's a lot of learning through that. And I mean, still working on that, being bold, taking opportunities, but it really is true that your sport is like a battlefield and a mission field for the Lord. And so I think over time that really shaped how I viewed college sports. But I would say very pivotal was like my freshman year realizing like, oh, big wake up call. This is not my worth. And I remember my family was like huge pivotal people in that and directing me back to like what my identity is. But that's a little background on kind of big chapters, big milestones in my faith,
Yeah.
even though I always was guided in the faith growing up.
Right, right. It's so funny how literally nobody talks about when you get to college and all of a sudden everyone around you is good and you're like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, I'm not special anymore. And that's
No.
like how you realize that you have been putting your identity in your sport for so long. Cause I've actually talked to a couple other people like on this podcast about that. And I'm like, this is not talked about enough. Like I've never heard about this topic literally until getting talked about it on the podcast. But I experience it, you experience it, so many people experience that. But again, thank goodness for God's kindness in that like conviction process to redirect you to teach you that your identity is not in volleyball and it's, in him and it's you. There's so many more things to you, right, than just volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so now I want to dive into the story of you spent 4 years at UGA, like you said, had the best time ever. That's amazing. But then, yeah, how did this opportunity or this idea of using the rest of your eligibility come up? How did you, then I'm sure you had to enter the portal or
Yeah.
something, but
Yeah.
it's like a
Uh-huh.
portal for like a different sport, kind of.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's
so let's dive
it's
into
super unique.
that.
Yeah. So basically what's interesting is the beach portal and the indoor portal is the same portal. And so like
Okay.
during my senior year at Georgia, I was technically in the portal for volleyball. So it was weird because I'm in season, but I'm in the portal.
Oh
And
my
I was like, no,
gosh.
no, no. It's like it's for beach. I want to make that very clear. And what was cool about the process is it's a very unique situation where like it was no bad blood to Georgia because
Right.
my eligibility was up. So my coaches at Georgia were very supportive of like, helping me in this next step. So I had all my coaches on my side. I had all my people on my side. Everyone was supporting me in the process. And yeah, I'd been told a lot in the past. I'm a very quick twitch, fast player. And so a lot of people were like, I don't think you should try the sand. And yeah, I remember like I was like talking to my parents and they were like, well, have you ever even played in a beach tournament? Like, have you done anything? And I was like, I played on vacation with my brothers. That's about it. So it was like one of those moments where I was like, I don't know what's going to come of this. And so then, yeah, I just kind of went through the whole like recruiting process again, which was very interesting. Like your second time around, I was like, thank the Lord literally that I like have him in this process and that how much I've learned in the past 4 years. So yeah, it was like so much time in prayer and just like understanding the next step. And I think it's so normal to just like get a job and move on that like I felt a little bit weird taking this weird other route. But yeah, so just a lot of time like talking to God. One of my biggest things was like, I want to end up where the Lord wants me to end up. And I was talking to so many people in my life and I was like, I just don't want to choose something that like the Lord doesn't want for me. And I remember like one of my friends specifically told me, they were like, you will always be in the center of the Lord's will. Like you cannot choose a decision outside of what the Lord's will is for your life. And that stuck with me so much because I was like, no matter where I end up, the Lord is orchestrating it. And so that was like really reassuring. So then I committed to GCU and I came here in January. So I've been here about 2 months now and I am just overwhelmed by the way the Lord has met me here and like the people he has placed in my life. It could bring me to tears. Just the teammates I have, the coaches I have, and even the people not on my team, like everything is just like this huge wave of like emotion and gratitude. I just could never have pictured, like I talked to my parents, they're like, man, if we could have said 3 months ago that this is what your life was going to be, like I probably would have laughed in your face. But like it's just a testament to show the Lord's plans are so much greater than yours. And I think that's one of the biggest things through this transition that I've learned is I was so worried, am I making the right decision? To no longer worry and going forward now, I can be like, look what the Lord has done in the past. He can do it again. And so, yeah, it's been just a huge testament to like the Lord's faithfulness to me. And I always say, I have zero complaints. That's what I keep saying to people because I couldn't be more grateful for the transition. So,
Wow. That is so cool. That is so cool. So you mentioned kind of like your friend that she was like you will always be in the center of the Lord's
yeah.
will.
Mhm.
And it made me think in the midst of you feeling like, am I making the right decision? Like, should I go forth with this or that? I'm sure there were also other schools that you were talking to, and it's like, oh gosh, what am I even doing
Right.
here? Again,
Yeah.
I've like never really even played beach volleyball, so
Yeah.
what? But it just reminded me that when you're making decisions, as long as you invite the Lord in, you are at the center of his will. It's
Absolutely.
when we try to control our own life, basically, like when we take too much control of our own decisions and, we have this like tight grasp on it
Right.
and we're not involving, like even the fact that you were like, gosh, I just want what God wants for me. I just want what God wants for me. The fact that you were
Right.
even like worrying about that at all is inviting him into it because it shows
Yeah.
your heart and that you want what he wants.
Right.
And that's just such a great takeaway of when you feel like all this chaos and this like stress, when you invite him in, like there's no way that you can step away from his will. There's no way that you can step out of line with what he has for you, you know?
Exactly.
I
Exactly. Yeah.
also wanted to dive into, so you're in season and in the portal at the same time. I
Yeah.
can't imagine the stress. Literally. And volleyball has a lot of games, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Every weekend, probably two at least. Yeah.
yeah, so no wonder this was like the topic of conversation when we were like originally talking about what was on your heart. Like now I'm putting the
Yes.
pieces together. So walk me through your perspective of day to day dealing with not only student athlete, literally like preparing for graduation, and also in the portal to go play a similar but also different sport.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would say looking back, it taught me how much just talking with the Lord can like change your life. Like as much as that was one of the most stressful chapters of my life, and I wouldn't necessarily want to go back and like repeat it. I also think it's like one of those moments where like I always say to people that I've never felt so close with the Lord, just because every minute that I could, I was either journaling, praying, like just something. And I don't even mean that in like a righteous way, but I need answers, I need help, everything. And
almost
so
out of like desperation of like you didn't know what
literally,
else to do. That was the only thing
exactly.
you could do.
Yes. And I remember it's just like, looking back, I was like, wow, the Lord did reveal so much about my heart to me. I like asked for conviction in certain situations. And I just was like, wow, the Lord really revealed a lot. One of the biggest things I learned was like how much you can actually bring the Lord into your everyday life. I think there's kind of this stigma that you have to have this 2 hour chunk in the morning to just be quiet with the Lord. And while I'm a huge advocate for spending good chunks of quiet time with the Lord, as a student athlete, you get it. You have to find ways to invite him into what you're already doing. And so I think that's one of my biggest things that I've been trying to do lately is invite him into lift, invite him into practice, invite him into while you eat dinner. The simplest things, put your phone down, don't scroll while you eat dinner is something that I'm working on. Just be present with the Lord. And I think that like opens a lot of perspective of like when I was in that huge stressful moment, it was like if I actually do cultivate this process of letting the Lord lead like in every aspect of my life, like I do have a lot more time with him than I think. And so I think that's one of the biggest things, like stop worrying as much about like bringing out these large chunks of time and instead just invite him into the like mandatory practice, mandatory film, scout, everything you have. Just invite him in.
Yeah. I love that, and I think that is so good. Of course, I relate to that. I think I've definitely talked on the podcast before about how I'm at the gym at 6:30 every single morning for treatment. Like, we practice in the morning. We have to get there an hour and a half before. So, yeah, when I get up at 5:30, it's rough.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yes, I am making the time, but sometimes I accidentally hit snooze, okay? And then I don't have as much time, and I mean, literally this morning, like, I had 7 minutes, like, that's all I had, and I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna spend 7 minutes in the Word," and I know it would be great to have more, but, like, this is what
Right.
I have right now,
Yes.
but still, I could have snoozed again and used that 7 minutes to sleep, so it was, like, still making the effort, but then also, yeah, what am I doing in treatment? Am I scrolling on my phone, or am I engaging in, like, loving, caring conversations with my teammates? Am I
Right.
on the Bible app? It's crazy how much we can make time for him when we're intentional with it, and God is so intentional with us that if we're even a slither of that intention, that amount of intentionality with him,
Yeah.
like, it can change us and impact us so, so,
Right.
so much.
And what you said about your alarm too, like, it's like, oh, I'm just so tired. But what I've learned is the best rest you can get is with Jesus. So like we're in the early morning practice times too now. And so on the weekends, I don't remember how to sleep in anymore, apparently. So I'm waking up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday and I'm like,
Oh my
what?
gosh.
So of course, for the first 2 weekends, I was like, this is so annoying. I want to sleep in. And then I was like, you know what? The Lord has prepared this time to now rest with him. And I think that's something I've been learning too is like, if my brain's tired and I'm like, just want to doom scroll on my phone, how much more restful it is being with the Lord, even if it's, oh, like I need to read my Bible. I am learning how much more that fills you up compared to what you think as rest may not actually.
Right. So true. And a lot of those things that we think are rest are really just a bunch of distractions, right?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
know, like, for me, social media is like the easiest distraction.
Right.
But, like, I wish that my
Absolutely.
brain didn't crave it as much as it does, right?
Yes. Me too.
Right. But this segues into my next question of just talking about all the distractions of being a student athlete. What tends to be like the first part of your faith that kind of gets pushed to the side? Is it that quiet time? Is it your prayer life?
Yeah, I would for sure say like my quiet time and prayer life. Like
Mhm.
you could have hit it on the head more. Something's always going on up here. I'm always thinking about something. And so I think prayer life is tough when you're so busy because while you're sitting there, you're also thinking about what's next? What do I have to do? And that quiet time does slip. And so I think it's like you said, you had 7 minutes the other day. I think it's important to not get caught up in what we see on social media of like, and then I spent the next 3 hours in solitude with Jesus. And that's beautiful. I'm not
Right.
mocking.
That's
beautiful.
amazing. Like, praise
Yeah.
God if you can do
Right.
that.
Right. But like you said, the Lord knows your heart. If you have 7 minutes genuinely, then he's going to use that and he can multiply that to feeling just as restful as 3 hours. And so I think for sure the first thing that slips for me is my quiet time. And especially as a student athlete, you have friends back home you want to call. I'm FaceTiming my friends, my family, all that. So I think that's definitely the first thing that goes for me.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. And I'm sure that a lot of listeners feel that too, with just like a lot of people don't like reading, period. So it's already like feels like a burden, to open the Bible, even though it's not. And I always find myself like once I open it, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this
like
is so
you're
great.
stuck. Yeah.
But sometimes just opening it is so hard. But yeah, I hope that was encouraging to the person listening that's just like, oh, I struggle so much with that, or that's the first thing that falls off. So now I want to talk about how we get back on track after, you've had a crazy stressful week. You had like 4 games or something insane. How do we get back on track, get back into that routine?
Yeah, I think it really starts with, well, I'm a type A person. So this is easy for me, maybe not as much for someone else, but plan your day, even if it's just one day of the week. Be like, okay, these 30 minutes, I'm just gonna be back with the Lord, even if it has, like you said, been a weekend. And then honestly, just reminding yourself how much more restful that is than the alternatives. Like you said, TikTok, Instagram, all those are distractions, but in the moment, it feels like rest. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is like, have someone to hold you accountable. Have a fellow believer who's like, hey, are you being intentional or are you finding other ways to cope with the busyness and chaos of life? Because I do think that's huge. I have people in my life who are constantly drawing me back to Jesus, constantly, whether it be their actions, what they say to me. And I think that's one of the biggest things. But then just being a little bit more like intentional, like, okay, today we're getting back on track. The Lord says, come as you are. So come as you are, spend that time with him and just give yourself grace with it. The Lord is giving you grace. So give yourself grace with it and be okay with starting 2 minutes in prayer and then bumping it up to 5. Like you don't need to go for the extreme right away, but just slowly finding that rhythm.
Yeah, I love that. And also, like, as you draw near to the Lord, he draws near to you. So you will feel that like immediately. I want to talk a little bit about the people that you said are surrounding you and that support you. Will you just tell me who those people are?
Yeah, absolutely.
And about them, whatever you want to say about them.
Yeah. That's one of like the biggest blessings of my transition right now is I have so many people and luckily on my team too, specifically that are just pouring into me constantly and honestly really pushing me in my faith. I feel like I haven't been able to get complacent recently because I see all these other people around me like chasing after the Lord. And it's just like, oh, I gotta catch up. I want to run with you. And it's just the way that fellow believers can revive your soul, even doing the most mundane thing. I'll show up to a Friday lift after having a full week of practice and lifts. And I remember like the first couple of weeks, I was like, why do I not feel tired? Like, I do not feel tired. And then I like looked around and I was like, this is why. Like, it's the people around me, just the way that they are screaming worship songs and lift, the way that they just like let the Lord infect their lives. So that's like more in like my home base here. But then like, I'm like a huge long distance best friend type of person. So like, I got my people in Minnesota. I have my people in Georgia. And again, just like constantly pouring into me, whether it's just a FaceTime call, all of a sudden, like an hour later, I'm like, wow, that like the Lord is so good. And even my mom and dad, my mom and I do a over the FaceTime Bible study. But yeah, honestly, just being around believers fills you up so much to the point where like, you just have to overflow that joy. And I think that's something that I've been experiencing so much recently.
I love that. So what would you say to someone who's like, okay, I hear you and I want to be surrounded by those people, but I don't know where to go or how to start?
Yeah, for sure. Immediately when you ask that question, I think of my freshman year, just because like I was like new. I had my brother, which was wonderful. But besides that, I'd always gone to like private Christian schools, so I always had like just
It
surrounded
was like
believers.
built in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just built in. And then all of a sudden, I was at Georgia, which by no means is there a lack of believers, but you're no longer just have this built-in group. And so I remember the first thing I would recommend is get plugged in at a church. Get plugged in. And it's huge to find one that you can stick at and then get in a small group with. I always joke my brothers made a lot of friends for me because I was student athlete. So I kind of hopped along with them and just joined their friends. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, get in the church, get with believers. I know going to college, there's a lot of people end up just watching online their home church, which like I for sure did too. But getting yourself up and getting dressed and then like being in communion is something that I think the Lord wants so much for us. And so I would say that's one of the biggest things. And then just put yourself out there. Like I remember my first 2 weeks here, I was like, social batteries at an all-time low because you don't have the people that you just are comfortable around. But
You're
like
like
it
working
takes,
to make those relationships, working to
yes,
have conversations still.
literally. And I was like,
I know
oh, I just
exactly what you
wanted
mean.
to, yes. And I'm like, I just want to be comfortable. I missed my people. And if the biggest encouragement I can give at that is it takes time and the Lord is going to build those friendships over time. But also something that I've been so aware of lately is like when the Lord is at the center of friendship, that friendship can deepen and grow really quickly. And that's something I experienced here is I like look back and I was like, I've been here for 3 weeks and I am authentically myself and I am comfortable around these girls. And so I think that's something too is when the Lord's at
That's
the
such
center
a
of a friendship,
blessing. That's such a
yes,
blessing.
it grows. So once you find those people, give it a matter of time. But I think like, getting in the church, getting in a small group, I know it's tough as an athlete. It's like 7 p.m. and you're like, I don't want to go. I want to just go to bed. But like we talked about in the past, rest may not look the same as what your brain thinks it is. Like rest may be going to that worship night and getting home and going to bed a little later. It might not be watching a movie or scrolling on your phone for 2 hours before bed. So
Right. Right. I also feel like it's really hard for student athletes sometimes to make friends outside of their sport. Like that is really, really hard just because, like you were saying, like you have to put yourself out there. Sometimes you have to go to places alone. Now, of course, it's incredible. It's such a blessing when there's believers on your team, right? Side by side next to you every single day. I'm not discounting that at all, but there's also, like, a time where you do have to kinda, like, put yourself out there and search for those things outside of just the people that are on your team. So, I just hope that someone finds some encouragement there today to, like, step out in faith in that way because, yes, while you're with everyone who's on your team every single day, and that's so great, if you don't have someone else that's pushing you, then you're not gonna be able to pull those people that are on your team to Jesus also because no one, is, like, pouring into you. If you don't have someone pouring into
yes,
you, you can't pour into others. And so,
absolutely.
I know that I mean, our team, we have incredible believers and they push me all the time and I love having teammates that are believers, but I also have a community that is not on the gymnastics team and that community has also been so so good for me and like the Lord's faithfulness has shown through that too.
Yes.
So there's something significant in that, but being an athlete it's so hard to like go do something and not be known as I'm doing this because I'm an athlete or I'm doing this with
Yeah.
my team,
Yes. Yeah.
especially freshman year, especially freshman year.
Especially. Yes. 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 Something with that, like what you touched on at Georgia, I had some amazing believers on my team and some not. And like you said, in a moment, I think it was discouraging just because I wanted to have everyone experience the joy of Jesus. Like that's really as simple as it comes down to. It's not about forcing religion on people. It's about a true relationship with Jesus. And I think in the moment I was so bummed about it. And now looking back, it was one of the greatest moments for like the Lord to be like, okay, if you really believe in me and you really want to be bold for me, here's a group of people who don't know me, show who I am through what you do. And I think, especially in college athletics, you get a lot of opportunities to respond in a way that Jesus would instead of what the world would do. I by
So true.
no means, I by no means had like this wonderful, like no problem experience at either schools, but I mean, I can speak more to Georgia just because it was 4 years of my experience. I can name the lowest lows and the highest highs and everything in between. And I remember so many moments where I was like, this is how I want to respond, but that completely ruins what I preach, that like Jesus is Lord over my life and like all the characteristics of Jesus. And so I think that's something I would encourage people with is like, I by no means have always been surrounded by believers. And I would just encourage people to be grateful for the experience that you aren't. Because, like, that is a big part of my story at Georgia. And I met some wonderful people that didn't believe. And I think that they also helped shape my faith more in a way. And I think that I also was able to plant seeds. And so, yeah, focus on planting seeds and the Lord will do the rest. But I think there is a lot of fruit that can come from that experience.
Yeah, for sure. And not only in the other person's life, but in your life too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I heard once that, I don't know where I heard this, but it takes like 6 seeds planted in someone's brain for them to take action or go to church service or like ask a question about God. And sometimes it can be really hard when you don't know what number seed you are, right? When you're planting a seed. So sometimes you plant a seed and you're seed number 2 and you don't see any like reaction from it. And you're like, man, this kind of stinks. Like, what did I do wrong? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't stop planting seeds because, again, you never know when you're going to be someone's 6th or 7th seed that then leads them to take action in their relationship with Jesus. So, yeah, don't be afraid to plant seeds.
Seriously. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, talking about all this busyness and chaos, of course, one thing that always stays true is the Word of God. So, do you have a Bible verse that you kind of cling to and always go back to when things are chaotic or just, in your life in general? Because student athlete life never gets any less chaotic, honestly.
No, seriously, there's no off season.
No.
Yeah, this one's kind of newer for me, but something that I've been really telling myself over and over is Matthew 6:33, where it says, "Seek first the kingdom and all will be added." And I like am wondering why it took me so long to like really let that one settle in my heart. But thinking about the fact that like truly if you seek first the kingdom of Jesus, all will be like when I think about that, it really is that simple. If I seek Jesus, he will provide everything else. So I think in sports that's really encouraging. If I seek him first in my sport, he will provide what he wants to provide. And the misconception, that doesn't mean he's going to provide me with all these accomplishments and accolades. He's going to provide what he wants in this season. So I think at Georgia, if you looked at my bio, my stats, like you're not going to see me as the most decorated player in Georgia volleyball history. But like the Lord provided exactly what he needed to provide for me in that time. And so I think that verse is something I'm just clinging really tightly to. It doesn't say seek first the greatest success in your sport. It doesn't even say seek first the greatest friendships. It could be good things. It can be great things. But like, if that takes priority over seeking first the kingdom, I think that can be a really slippery slope to like false titles. And so that has been every day. I'm like, okay, seek first kingdom, and something I've just been really clinging to.
Yeah. I love that. I love that verse. We literally have it written on our whiteboard out in our kitchen.
I love it.
In our living room. I love that verse. And it also just goes back to the beginning of our conversation, talking about inviting him into every little thing that you do in every part of your life. Because if you are seeking first the kingdom, if you're looking for Jesus, looking for the blessings that God has provided around you, one, the world looks a whole lot brighter.
Yeah.
The world looks a whole lot better. But
a whole lot more, yeah.
But two, like all of these things will be added to you. And again, I love how you said you don't necessarily know what that looks like because in our human brains, it's like, oh, if I look towards Jesus, then I'm going to become, NCAA national champion, or I'm going to be in lineup, or, be a starter for every single game. And even though our human brains think that, that's not always what that means for the Lord. And I mean, you might just be there planting seeds like 24/7. And
you don't know. Yeah.
right, you don't know. But I think it's really cool, like you having the experience of all 4 years at Georgia, being able to reflect and look back on like, yes, okay, you're not the most decorated volleyball player in Georgia history, but you have still been able to see all that the Lord added to your life and others' lives and your experience at Georgia in those 4 years. And I think that's like, it's cool. And it's just a unique experience because I'm sitting here as a sophomore and like, I have no idea what the next 2 years, 2.5 years like hold and all of that stuff. But knowing that, okay, seeking first the kingdom, like everything's going to be added. And if my eyes are on Jesus, then like nothing else matters. And also I'm like following in his will, like we were talking about.
Right. And a lot can change in 2 years too. Like,
so true. Awesome. Okay, Estelle, this has been an amazing conversation. I've enjoyed this literally so much. So to wrap up, I have our final question, which is, what is your one piece of advice to a younger athlete who's trying to navigate how their sport and their faith intersect?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Yeah, I think 2 things. I think first, just like the theme of what we've been talking about, let the Lord infect your athletic experience. Like truly, every point, every rep, glorify the Lord with what you're doing. And then I think there's this message that it's like okay, one time I'm going to realize that my identity isn't in my sport, and then I'm just good from there on out. I think it's a constant intentional effort. To this day, there's days where I'm like, ooh, whoa, SD, like, what are we doing there? And so I think like that's one of the biggest messages I would give is be consistent every day with dying to yourself, dying to your flesh in the sense of like letting your sport take your worth, take your identity. It's not going to be like one day you wake up and you're like, you know what? It's never going to happen again. Like it's going to happen again,
right?
Especially at the college level. And so give yourself grace with it, but also don't slip away from being intentional about that. Just because I remember my freshman year, I was like, oh, well, now I have it figured out. So clearly I'm fine now. No, like it's going to come up. The devil wants to come and tell you lies and feed into the experience that you are living every day. And so just being intentional every day with letting the Lord take back your identity, even when our sport does take up 80-90% of our day. So
right. No, that's so true. And it's a constant refining kind of.
Yes.
And
yes,
you're right. Like the enemy, honestly, when we are constantly refining and constantly seeking first the kingdom, like the enemy gets angry because he's like, wait, I'm losing that soul, right?
Yes.
So that's so true to just remind people like it doesn't just get easier. It doesn't just snap and like, woohoo, I'm good. It's a constant refining, but like being intentional with that can literally move mountains.
Yeah, literally.
As always, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Beam Boldly. Don't forget to subscribe and follow so that you can continue on this journey with me. Bye, you guys.